All right, we've had some big-time wildlife and environmental news this past week, and I bet you're interested. Am I right? Let's jump into it. First off, let's start with a story from ScienceDaily.com. There's been a subtle but noticeable change in forests across the globe the past few decades. Longer-lived and slow-growing tree species are on the decline in many regions throughout the world. They are being replaced by faster-growing, short-lived tree species that are very opportunistic. These fast-growing trees are dubbed sprinter trees. There's a few conditions that help out these sprinter tree species and certainly aren't favorable to longer-lived ones. First of all are abiotic conditions, such as drought and increased overall heat. Longer-lived trees are more like Goldilocks. They need everything to be just right to be happy and cannot tolerate or handle frequent disturbances. Obviously, logging of older trees via deforestation immediately removes older trees, and they simply cannot be replaced anytime soon. Couple this with the fact that trees need to go through succession to develop into mature forests. Replacement of older trees is complicated and does not occur overnight. Now, why losing these slow-growing old trees matters? They can store carbon for much longer than sprinter trees, and they often support more specialized wildlife, fungi, and microhabitats. There's also an interesting phenomenon called forest homogenization. This is when native and specialized tree species are being outcompeted by widespread generalist species. In other words, the structure and perhaps even overall function of forests globally are shifting. And I'd also be pretty bummed out if forests almost had no older trees in them. I think we've all probably stood in front of a magnificent tree before, right? Just staring in awe at the fact that it started out as a little seedling and persisted decades and perhaps even centuries. All right, our next story is about diamondback terrapins. Diamondback terrapins are a brackish-loving aquatic turtle along the coastline of the southeastern United States. A popular nesting site is near Jekyll Island, Georgia. Gravid female terrapins, which means they're pregnant ones, will emerge from the salt marshes to find higher ground and deposit their eggs. Unfortunately for the soon-to-be mama terrapins, that means potentially crossing the Downing Musgrove Causeway, which is a long stretch of road that connects Jekyll Island to the rest of Georgia. Previously, before fencing was put up, around 18% of turtles were actually hit by cars, and that's even with volunteers patrolling the causeway. After fencing was installed between 2022 and 2025, the rate went from 18% to just 2.3%, so great success. However, another double whammy for the terrapins occurred: raccoon depredation of the buried eggs. The females had made it to higher ground, ran into the fence, and laid eggs in self-dug holes along the fence. Now, raccoons, they figured this out pretty quickly, and they had themselves a feast every year. But in a new paper published in the journal Herpetological Conservation and Biology, researchers installed electrical wires hooked up to solar panels to deter mammals. And guess what? It worked. They reduced the nest rating by 98%. So it's great to see some excellent actions implemented by dedicated conservationists. Okay, and finally, let's talk about clownfish. I would have thought that the color patterns on Nemo were built in genetics. Sure, maybe over time, colors and patterns shift, but that's all based on the DNA they come hardwired with, right? But not so fast. Juvenile clownfish patterns change based on social interactions. Crowded and competitive environments actually speeds up their pattern changing. And that's probably because clownfish develop strict social hierarchies as a group. You've got the dominant female, a breeding male, and some unlucky non-breeding juveniles lower on the totem pole. When social pressure is high, changes in hormones occur, and voila, juvenile clownfish will lose their stripes much faster than expected. I love these types of stories that challenge how we think about morphology and evolution because we learn more about developmental plasticity. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and have a great day or night or morning or whatever. Yeah.